Prime Minister Carney, Canada's climate policy isn't just flawed, it's profoundly, fundamentally broken. We're witnessing a country commit irreversible economic damage while desperately virtue signaling. And for what? To feel good? While Canada is busy shackling its own industries and punishing its own citizens, the world's actual biggest polluters are laughing at us. China, India, Russia, they're building pipelines, they're mining coal, they're drilling for oil at a pace you cannot even imagine. They're powering their economies, lifting their people out of poverty, and expanding their global influence. And what is Canada doing? It's stifling its own economy and choosing a managed decline. So, this is our wake up call because this policy needs to be fixed and it needs to be fixed immediately. After taking office in May 2025, Prime Minister Carney came in as a more pragmatic leader. And what did he do? He started rolling back some of the most aggressive green policies. He hit the brakes on the consumer carbon tax. He paused the insane electric vehicle mandate. And you might think that sounds like a step in the right direction, and you'd be right, but in a vacuum. Because we know much of Canada's climate policy is his brainchild in the first place. So it's more of an admission that the previous path was a disaster. But here's the problem. It's like putting a band-aid on a bullet wound. The government is tinkering at the edges while the core of the Canadian economy is bleeding out. You have an economy that is cripplingly high in unemployment and a cost of living crisis that is crushing families. And the best they can offer is, well, we'll be slightly less insane with our self-destructive policies. And here's the great contradiction, the absolute hypocrisy at the heart of it all. While Canada agonizes over every ton of carbon, China is building the equivalent of 2 new coal-fired power plants every single week. Let me say that again, every week. They account for nearly 30% of global emissions and they are not slowing down. India, Russia, and even the United States are all in the middle of a massive expansion of oil and gas pipelines, over 14,000 miles of them globally. Yes, we are in a climate crisis, but I have a simple question. Why should a Canadian trucker, a Canadian farmer, or a Canadian oil worker lose their job to pay for a climate gesture that other countries don't even care about? It just does not make sense. And when something doesn't make sense, you have to ask who benefits. It's certainly not the Canadian people. This brings me to a second point. Canada is being played for a fool on the world stage. The entire premise of Canada's climate policy is based on a lie. The lie that Canadian sacrifice will somehow inspire the world's worst offenders to change their ways. Newsflash, they don't care. They're not following your lead. They're actually actively doing the opposite. Canada's total contribution to global greenhouse gas emissions is a measly 1.5%. If Canada were to sink into the ocean tomorrow, it would virtually make no difference to the global climate trajectory. Yet, you're being asked to bear 100% of the economic pain. It's like bringing a water pistol to a wildfire and setting yourself on fire to show that you're serious. It's just absurd. And what's the result of all this virtue signaling? Does Canada get to claim the moral high ground? Not even close. And I think you don't know this. According to the 2025 CCPI, or Climate Change Performance Index, Canada ranks 62nd out of 67 countries. 62nd. We are labeled a very low performer on climate. You are getting all of the economic pain and none of the environmental gain. You are paying the price of admission to a club that won't even let you in the door. Forget leadership. It's national humiliation broadcast on a global stage. While our leaders preach about a green future, they are presiding over a policy that is failing by every objective metric. This is where the policy goes from being merely ineffective to actively stupid and self-destructive. By hamstringing its own energy sector, Canada is not reducing the world's demand for oil and gas. The world still needs energy. Think about artificial intelligence. All we are doing is ensuring that the demand is met by countries that are far dirtier and in many cases, I guess, hostile to Western values. When you block a Canadian pipeline, you are rolling out the red carpet for a Qatari or a Russian oligarch. When you shut down Canadian energy exploration, you are handing out a blank check to a Saudi prince. You are transferring wealth, jobs, and power from your own people to your geopolitical rivals. This isn't just bad economics, it's a catastrophic foreign policy blunder. It's self-destructive virtue signaling and it needs to stop immediately. And here's the final jaw-dropping layer of hypocrisy. For all the public posturing, for all the pain inflicted on its citizens, what is the Canadian government doing behind the scenes? It turns out Canada is one of the world's leaders in planned new oil and gas exploration. You heard that right. Canada is projected to be responsible for 9% of all new global gas projects and oil projects through 2035. So let me get this straight. The policy is to publicly shame and dismantle your own energy sector, making your people poorer while privately planning to expand it anyway? It is a policy that is incoherent, dishonest, and fundamentally broken. So, what is the fix? It's simple actually, and it's common sense. First, you stop the virtue signaling immediately. You abandon the idea that self-harm is a noble climate strategy. Second, you unleash the power of Canadian innovation and resources for the good of the planet and your own people. What does that look like? It looks like fast-tracking the export of clean Canadian LNG to Asia to displace the millions of tons of coal they burn every year. That one move would do more to lower global emissions than carbon tax could maybe in 1,000 years. It would create high-paying Canadian jobs and generate wealth for your country. Anita Anand, you were in India recently. This is a mandate you should have pushed for. A smart strategy would be to lead with technology, not taxes. Lead with exports, not economic surrender. A smart strategy would be to say that if the world is going to use oil and gas, it should come from a clean, ethical, democratic country like Canada, not from dictatorships. It's time for our government that understands that a strong economy and a clean environment are not mutually exclusive. They're two sides of the same coin. Prime Minister Carney, our climate policy must change. It's hurting the very people it is intended to serve. It's weakening the country and it's not even working. The people of Canada deserve better. They deserve a government that will fight for their jobs, for their prosperity, and for a realistic path forward. This is not a left or right issue. This is a right or wrong issue. And this policy is wrong. It needs to be called out. It needs to be challenged. It needs to be fixed immediately. Thank you so much for watching. And if you're still with me, hit that subscribe button, share this video, and let's demand some more common sense. Let's not let this virtue signaling continue this time or win. Thank you.